Time for the press review with Alison Sargent. Good to see you, Alison.
Hi, Dono.
You're starting out in Spain, where papers are looking at the situation over on the Canary Islands, where some over 15,000 migrants have arrived since the start of this year.
That's right, Dono. More than 15,000 people arrived there since the start of the year, which is about 4 times the number of people that arrived in the past 2 years combined. Catalan paper El Periódico writes that the islands are overwhelmed. The situation has seen social services collapse and unleashed tension among the population. The paper also notes that the route that leads to the Canary Islands is the most dangerous way of getting from the African continent to Europe. It's not only being used now by sub-Saharan Africans, they say, but now also by Moroccans and other North Africans who are being pushed to leave by drought and by the economic situation caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Now, local paper El Diario de Canarias writes that there are some 200 people, most of them from Morocco, living homeless without food or water in the streets of Las Palmas, which is in the north of Gran Canaria. The paper writes that they don't know where to go since they were kicked out of an emergency camp in the south of the island where they arrived. Right-wing paper El Mundo is far less sympathetic. They're angry that migrants are being left to wander the streets without having been tested for COVID-19, and the paper warns that they now risk contaminating the local population, which until now had been largely spared by the pandemic.
It's a tricky situation. Now we're moving from Spain to Israel next, where papers there are examining the Palestinian Authority's restoration of security ties with Israel.
That's right, an announcement that was made on the eve of the visit from Donald Trump's Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. The Jerusalem Post reminds us that the Palestinian Authority formally suspended security ties back in May. That was in response to West Bank annexation plans and to many of the policies of the Trump administration. Now, Palestinian Authority officials told the Jerusalem Post that the restoration of ties is meant to pave the way for the new relationship with the U.S. under the Biden administration. Haaretz calls the move Biden's first presidential miracle. The paper writes that the Israeli security establishment heaved a heavy sigh of relief over this news. Both Haaretz and the Jerusalem Post are pointing out that Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be reaching sort of a final stage of grief over losing his ally, Donald Trump. The Israeli Prime Minister did finally call Joe Biden and congratulate him on his victory yesterday.
Now, Donald Trump may be leaving office soon. He doesn't know. He hasn't conceded defeat yet in the vote, but papers are warning that he could, wreak geopolitical chaos on his way out.
Yeah, The Guardian is one of the papers warning about a foreign policy chaos in Trump's final days. The fears of chaos are fueled in part by a New York Times report that he asked for options to bomb Iranian nuclear sites. Now, Donald Trump was ultimately talked out of this by his aides, who warned that it could trigger a major conflict. Still, The Guardian's also worried about other consequences, such as yesterday's announcement from the Pentagon that the U.S. is reducing its number of troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. The paper warns that that could really undermine the ongoing peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban. For French paper Libération, Donald Trump is racing to sabotage the Middle East. That's their headline here. They say even if Donald Trump didn't ultimately bomb Iran, the paper writes that he is looking to impose new sanctions, and that is going to make it even more difficult for Joe Biden to rejoin the nuclear deal, as he hopes to do. The New York Times writes that Iran is expected to demand a high price for the U.S. to return to the deal, including not only the immediate lifting of all sanctions imposed by the Trump administration, but also billions of dollars in compensation for them.
We'll see what happens with that tricky deal. It won't be an easy one for Biden, it's safe to say. Moving on to some lighter stories next, we've had 2 good announcements from U.S. pharmaceutical companies of a COVID-19 vaccine. Now we find out that Dolly Parton has spent $1 million funding one of them.
That's right, Delano. Her $1 million donation was in part went to fund the Moderna vaccine, the most recent one that was announced to be 95% effective. In other words, it's working 95. That's what we read here in The Guardian. Yeah, a good headline. Of course, Working 925 is the title of one of Dolly Parton's hit songs. And the singer, Delano, really has been working, I'd say, even longer hours than that. The paper notes that she is engaged in tons of philanthropy projects, including a program that gives free books to preschool-age children, She recently said in an interview that she never had kids herself because she believes, quote, God didn't want me to have kids so that everybody's kids could be mine. And I think that's a rather nice sentiment if you have kids or not.
And she's putting her money to good use. That's a lot more than most celebrities do, so that's great. Yeah. And finally, an embarrassing mistake from the Pope, who liked a photo of a Brazilian bikini model.
That's right. This like came from the Pope's verified Instagram account, and so either it was him on accident, or more likely hypothesis, it was a mistake made by one of the people who manage his social media account.
I find it hard to believe that the Pope is using Instagram.
I know, right? Yeah. I mean, that's he is. Yeah, he's not really the demographic that we expect to be on Instagram. Anyway, Delano, I know you probably want to see the photo, as do our viewers. We decided it was a little too risque to show. The Huffington Post.
You decided it was risque.
I mean, the Huffington Post is not showing it either, but you can read the article and you'll find it easily online if you do a little Google search. My favorite thing about this story is that the model Natalia Gariboto responded. She joked with her followers about it. She said, "BRB, I'm on my way to the Vatican, and at least I'll be in heaven."
Great. Thank you very much for that, Alison Sargent there with today's press review.